Good day, everyone. We're so glad you're joining us. My name is Mona Valdez, Associate Director of Institutional Events and Outreach at Pacifica Graduate Institute. In case you're not aware, OPUS is located at our Pacifica campuses. And now, it is my privilege to introduce one of our guests from OPUS Archive and Research Center, Andrea Robles.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Mona. We are so excited to be able to share OPUS with everyone here today. Like Mona said, I'm Andrea Robles. I'm the Archives and Administrative Assistant for OPUS. I'm going to give you just a quick overview, a very quick overview of OPUS, and then I will pass it along to our curator, Devon Deimler, who will present our current exhibit, and then we'll finish off with the question and answer sessions. Both Devon and I will be there to answer any questions that may come up. OPUS Archives and Research Center is a 501c3 nonprofit, which really is just a fancy way to say that we depend on donations to keep us going. We are on the campuses of Pacifica Graduate Institute here in Santa Barbara, but we are open to the public, not just staff and faculty. So everybody listening today, participating in this today, or via the recording later on, you are all welcome to give us a visit. OPUS holds the collections of eminent scholars in depth psychology and mythology, which is why we're here, part of the Pacifica campus. And our materials include things like manuscripts, essays, and lectures, both published and unpublished. We also have audio and visual material, video material, as well as a personal array of personal materials for each individual collection. And you'll see examples of all of those different types of things in our exhibit today. We also have several personal libraries. The Joseph Campbell and Marija Gimbutas libraries are at the Lambert campus, and the Marion Woodman Library is located on the Ladera campus, along with OPUS's Mythology and Folklore Library. So all of these materials are available for research in person only. We don't lend things out, and we are not currently open. But once we are very happy to schedule appointments so that you may visit us and work with our archivist to find all of the treasures that we have to offer. And with that, I will introduce Devon now. Devon Deimler is the curatorial assistant here at OPUS. She received her master's and Ph.D. in mythological studies with an emphasis in depth psychology from Pacifica Graduate Institute. So she is alumni here. Her dissertation won Pacifica's Dissertation of Excellence Award, and she adopted James Hillman's idea of depth psychology as a depth aesthetic by considering Dionysus as an archetype of aesthetic experience. Now, before studying at Pacifica, Devon received her BA in interdisciplinary sculpture from the Maryland Institute College of Art in Baltimore, focusing on event-based work and modern through contemporary art and film history. She is assisted in several arts-related archives, and her experience in art and music includes founding an independent record label and collaborative event project, Wildfire Productions, and working as assistant to the director at the Dennis Hopper Art Trust. Devon is currently the scholar in residence and special editions editor at the Philosophical Research Society in Los Angeles. And in the upcoming winter quarter, she will be adjunct faculty in Pacifica's Engaged Humanities and the Creative Life program. So I'll pass it on to Devon.
Thank you, Andrea. I want to thank you all for being here. I can't see a single one of you, but I know you're there. So thank you for being here. Welcome, everyone. Thank you to Mona for inviting us to this event, and to Pacifica for hosting us, and Andrea, again, for introducing me. I am going to turn my video off while I do my slideshow presentation, I have a lot of different windows to bounce around between. And I just know that my eyes will be darting like this the whole time otherwise. So at least to not distract myself with that concern, I will come back on video for Q&A. So as Andrea mentioned, I am curatorial assistant at OPUS, which means I'm responsible for curating exhibits, such as the one we'll be exploring shortly. Here on this slide, you can also see a selection of past exhibits I've been privileged to curate at OPUS. And usually, and hopefully soon again, I'm in charge of curating events at OPUS as well, such as our Joseph Campbell Foundation Mythological Roundtable gatherings, which I'll also tell you about at the end of the presentation. So I enrolled at Pacifica in their absolutely stellar mythological studies program in 2011. This is my very nervous and enthusiastic first day of school photo. And it really was the experience of a lifetime. I know that this event is sponsored by the admissions department. So during our Q&A, feel free to ask me questions about Pacifica, what it's like to be a student, et cetera, in addition to any questions you have about OPUS. So then it was my real luck and privilege to snag a volunteer position at OPUS in 2016 while I was in the middle of my dissertation. I was very excited because one of the star collections at OPUS is that of James Hillman, the founder of archetypal psychology. And it was reading Hillman's work that inspired me to come to Pacifica in the first place. So then I was in his archives. It was amazing. Here's an overview of some of our collections. Hillman's up there on the top left, right next to Marija Gimbutas to his right. So after a few months of volunteer work, I became group leader of our mythological roundtables, and soon after was hired as curatorial assistant. And it was there that I got to really learn Hillman's collection thoroughly, become more familiar with other collections, and be initiated into the work of people like Marija Gimbutas. So I want to turn now, with our short time together, to Marija. Here she is. I imagine many people on the Zoom today might know of her life and work already. Perhaps some of you know it very well. For others, it might be your introduction to Marija. So I hope no matter what, you encounter something new or inspiring through this presentation. I will let everyone know from the top that I am not an expert on Marija. Compared to the average person, yes, maybe, but my background is in myth and art and not archaeology or linguistics. So I can't answer very deep questions on those latter subjects. Most of what I know about Marija, I learned by making this exhibit, and I feel very eternally grateful for that. So just a quick overview of what we'll be moving through in the next half hour. First, I'll tell you a bit about how our exhibit came to be, quite a special circumstance. Then I'll show you how to navigate the virtual exhibit by taking you on a brief tour, sort of museum guide style. We won't look at every piece, but we will concentrate time on a few selections. You can then revisit the exhibit in full at your own pace at a later time. It's available through December or until December. We'll have to clarify that at the end. And then I'll give you a glimpse of what it's like to make an exhibit. And this serves also as a demonstration of how you can go about your own research and discoveries at OPUS, both on campus and from your home. And then finally, I will review further resources available to you online from OPUS. So certainly while an exhibit featuring Marija Gimbutas is a very worthy thing at any time, and one type of exhibit we could have at OPUS many, many times over, completely anew, given the wealth of materials in her collection. This particular exhibit was inspired by a special occasion, a year-long occasion, in fact. January 23rd, 2021 marked the centennial of Marija's birth date. UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization that I'm sure many people know of, chose Marija's Centennial as one of its official milestone anniversary commemorations for this year. These commemorations serve to posthumously recognize eminent personalities who have, in UNESCO's words, quote, helped shape the civilization we share by contributing to the mutual enrichment of cultures for universal understanding and peace. This is something I think Marija would have been quite thrilled by. And she joins a prestigious list of cultural influencers such as Beethoven, Dante, Dostoevsky, and so on, who are likewise honored for various centennials this year. So we figured what better way to participate in the celebration than by creating a year-long exhibit spotlighting Marija's incredible life and career. Her centennial is being especially celebrated by her home country of Lithuania, and this has been quite inspiring to see from afar. A gala was held in her honor at the presidential palace. And as you can see here, a special edition of Lithuanian postage stamps was even issued featuring Marija, surrounded by some very good company for her, some goddess figurines. So also, should you speak Lithuanian, you can find news coverage of the Centennial and its various celebrations, including a piece by Lithuanian National Radio and Television that included Opus's exhibit in its coverage. I will post a URL to that in our chat at the end of my talk, along with a few other resources for you. But even if you don't speak Lithuanian, I do not myself, it really gives a clear picture of just how legendary Marija continues to be in her home country. So now let us proceed to our offering, our exhibit, Marija Gimbutas, Archaeomythology of a Goddess. Of course, it's unfortunate that, like so many things, this could not be experienced in person this year, especially because of all of Opus's collections, I consider Marija's the most visually stunning and therefore often the most generous for a curator. But thankfully, we were able to create this virtual version, and the positive outcome of the whole situation is that we trained ourselves to do so, and we will be offering virtual versions of our exhibits going forward. So that is the sunny side. So I'll be taking you through an abridged edition of the virtual exhibit that we made for this webinar, but its full form is available through this URL. I'll also put that in the chat at the end. But what I wanted to do was also show you how to get there from scratch. So beginning at opusarchives.org, this is our homepage. Everything we have going on and coming up is here, including our webinar that we are in presently. And up here, you can find tabs that will take you to every major source of information or resources that Opus has, including exhibits. On this page, you can see all of our current exhibits as well as past exhibits. And we will go, I'll come back to this one at the end, but right now we will go to view virtual exhibit for Marija. This is the full exhibit virtual version. I am, in order to not confuse myself, going to close that now and go to our abridged version. So here we go, present again. Okay. So a brief bio to get us warmed up. Marija received her MA from the University of Vilnius in Lithuania in 1942 and earned her PhD in archaeology from Tübingen University in 1946 at age 25, which blows my mind. And her dissertation was on prehistoric Lithuanian burial rites. In 1949, she moved to the US, eventually settling in California in 1963, where she became a beloved professor at UCLA. As we'll see, Marija is best known for what's called her Kurgan hypothesis. and her work on Neolithic and Bronze Age cultures of what she termed Old Europe, which means the broadly Neolithic era of the geographic region we know today as Central and Southeastern Europe. She's known for this, and perhaps most of all for her passionate work on goddesses, which I imagine many people on the Zoom today know. So she coined the term archaeomythology, which got into our exhibit title, in order to describe her cross-disciplinary methods, which combined archaeology, myth, folklore, and linguistics in order to seek a layered understanding of ancient cultures. And she was uniquely able to do this. She was reader proficient in 25 languages, trained doctorate archaeologist, grew up steeped in folklore, as we'll see in a moment. Marija's archives were donated to OPUS between 1993 and 1998. Her collection includes papers from UCLA, research and lecture notes, maps, manuscripts, replica artifacts, relics from archaeological digs, and most notably for any artists or symbol enthusiasts among us today, over 12,000 slides and thousands of images in her symbol research files and illustration materials. Andrea mentioned her personal library. You can see pictures of it here, interior and exterior. Her personal library lives beside her colleague Joseph Campbell's library at Lambert, and includes over 1,500 volumes on archaeology, religions, myth, folklore, and anthropology. So here, getting into the exhibit proper, these are our two featured display cases, which live outside the OPUS offices on the Ladera campus. And the orange borders throughout the virtual exhibit indicate those parts of the exhibit that you can access virtually. So if you click on any of those locations, it will bring up a slide with larger images and exhibit information. So I'm going to click on a few highlights, starting here. There's Marija in Lithuanian attire. So this display looks at Marija's early life in and her exodus from Lithuania. By her own account, she had an idyllic childhood, cherished by her intellectual parents and immersed in nature and folklore, surrounded by people who really believed in goddesses and witches and goblins. All of these elements really deeply marked her imagination. While in college at Vilnius, however, the tide was changing. Soviet troops invaded Lithuania, German troops soon followed, and this forced Marija and her mother to hide in a remote forest home to escape extermination, which many of their friends very sadly did not. In 1944, Marija fled further to Austria with her new husband, and she clutched two things in her arms as she did so: her newborn daughter and her dissertation, so her two babies. In 1949, she emigrated to the US. Later, she was able to return to Lithuania, see her mother after many years apart. Her father passed when she was younger. And the warm welcome and honors she received from communities and universities on these visits really meant a great deal to her. Marija considered her work on the ancient cultures of her homeland as a way to give back to her people. And Lithuania was what she called her fountain of life. And even though she passed away in California, she is buried in Lithuania. Oh, I wanted to show you how to do this. So going back to the display, we can click on this one down here, a little more of a picture of Lithuania and sort of pagan imagination that Marija so respected and engaged with. So even before she became a university student, it was very important to her to engage life itself as a university. By the early 1940s, she had already collected hundreds of folk tales from her elders. In 1958, she published a study of the tradition of Lithuanian crosses, examples of which you can see here. Perhaps some of you have seen these in person. These really beautiful, elaborate, either wooden or iron crosses, often topped with roofs and ornamented with figures and symbols, as you can see. These were placed outside of homes, along roadsides and cemeteries, and they served to mark sacred sites and foster spiritual protection. They might be erected on occasions of marriage, death, or even I found very interesting during epidemics. As Marija writes, quote, "They rose from the earth as the folk song had risen, as various customs had risen, out of religious beliefs that challenged definition in artistic creation." So these were among my favorite things I found curating this exhibit. Let's go back to the display. Over here on the opposite side, we have a item, several items actually in the full virtual exhibit regarding the Kurgan hypothesis. So Marija first presented this in 1956, and ever since it's been widely validated by linguists, anthropologists, archaeologists, and even in somewhat more recent years, backed up by genetic research at Stanford. So in brief, this hypothesis proposes that old European civilizations that we mentioned earlier, that they were profoundly altered by the Kurgan migrations. And Kurgans refer to a war-oriented, patriarchal horseman culture from the Eurasian steppe regions north of the Black Sea. So Marija hypothesized that these people colonized old European regions between 4500 and 2500 BCE, and that from this encounter, very important to linguistic scholars, the Indo-European language system eventually developed. So this was quite a major deal and finding. Here on this slide, we have a picture of a burial mound. These were known as Kurgans, and they served as the namesake for Marija's designating these Proto-Indo-European cultures as Kurgans. Back to display. So what Marija's Kurgan hypothesis also implies, though, is that before the male-dominated, war-driven Kurgans took over, the old European settlements were different. Namely, she believed that they were female-led, earth-centered, goddess-worshipping, egalitarian, and non-violent. She did not explicitly propose that these peoples were matriarchal, ruled only by women, but that they were matrilineal, meaning most concerned with the connective thread of the feminine and a regenerative power worship through goddess images, this worship also being led by women. This theory has sometimes been quite criticized as too founded in personal interpretation rather than proven by scientific method by certain communities. However, it's also received significant popular support and praise from people like Joseph Campbell, who compared Marija's work to the deciphering of Egyptian hieroglyphics. Her work was very profound to him, and he expressed that he wished he could have known of it earlier in his life and career. Marija's most enthusiastic support for this theory, though, comes from artists, therapists, ecological activists, feminists, ecofeminists, among whom Marija sometimes becomes something of a goddess figure herself. So even if her goddess theories are not ultimately provable, she does offer us something still very valuable, I think, which is, as the writer of her New York Times obituary wrote, quote, "an imaginative alternative to male-centered explanations of human history." So here you can see one example of many commissioned archaeological illustrations from Marija's collection. This one always reminds me of Tim Burton type of attire. And oh, I had one more. There we go. And here's another example, really wonderfully strange, beautiful image of two bird goddesses. And this image also helps me to illustrate my next point, which is that Marija considered the patterns and symbols that appeared on these ancient artifacts to be a language. This language was comprised of animal shapes and abstract patterns, and it formed what she called an alphabet of the metaphysical. So before written language, you know, this she felt was a kind of language. And through hours and hours of study, she noticed repeated lines, wavy patterns, spirals, and so on the shapes of figurines, in the shapes of deer, frogs, butterflies, snakes, female figurines with pronounced features, even burial sites shaped like the female body. So in her view, all of these things had associations with the goddess in general, with fluidity, birth, death, rebirth, and if we could put it all in a single word, as she often did, regeneration, a power that's most connected to the feminine and the mother goddess, or goddess earth. So now we'll continue on into what, if we were on campus, would be the display cases in the Opus library, which doubles as extra exhibit space across the hall from the cases we just explored. I'm actually not going to zoom into this one, but please feel free to visit it on your own time. And here, display 3 are highlighted 3 of the cultures most studied and even excavated by Marija. Marija's archives are really a treasury of knowledge, research, scholarship, archaeological logic. It's full of ideas, but again, it's just so full of imagery. And I think that makes it accessible to everybody. So I can't emphasize that enough. If you're in need of visual inspiration, you will find it in the Gimbutas archives. So I want to, you can see what I'm talking about right here again. These are heads from figurines from the Sesklo culture in Thessaly in Greece. And this is a site that Marija did a dig at. Here she is pictured with one of her colleagues there in 1971. And these images to me are just so irreducibly stunning. So that's the kind of thing that's all over the place in her files. Display 4 here includes several different things, off prints, an LA Times Magazine article, a reader for one of her UCLA courses, and also this midterm from her 1986 course on Baltic and Slavic myth, which she was quite an expert in as well. So I thought I'd leave this up for you to see how many questions you can answer while I continue. It will not be graded. So because I know I'm speaking to at least some people on this Zoom who are grad school curious, I want to shine some light on Marija's really distinguished and resilient scholastic career. Not too long after she arrived in the States as a refugee, she found work as a translator of texts at Harvard University. But before she approached Harvard, she was employed as a maid. And when she was hired by Harvard, she was not always paid. It was really a different time. She was not permitted into the faculty center without a male escort or into most of the libraries, which at the time excluded women. But she persevered. And I think it's really not at all hard to understand why Marija has been such a powerful figure for women, not only for her affirmation of the possibility of goddess-centered cultures, but for her life so often lived against the grain. So she became a Harvard Research Fellow. She received a Fulbright scholarship to lecture in Lithuania. For nearly 30 years, she taught at UCLA, where she created an interdepartmental archaeology program, co-developed the Department of Indo-European Studies, and also served as curator of Old World archaeology. She also found the energy to publish 20 books and over 200 articles. Just an incredible, prolific life and passionate as well. The full virtual exhibit does include a partial bibliography, and a more complete bibliography for Marija is on the Opus website. So our 5th display includes 2 of Marija's most, to my mind, enigmatic artifact replicas. A figure on the left, known as a stiff white nude, and on the right, a figure that conjures both the shape of a human torso with its arms raised and also the head of a bull with horns. This is sometimes referred to as a bucranium figure. And on top of that, it's inscribed with a hourglass figure that Marija often referred to as a bee goddess. So this is another favorite for me in her collection. It is broken, possibly in the Northridge earthquake, which would have happened during Marija's time in LA. So she discovered, or I think maybe we should say rediscovered, at least 500 figurines herself. And she was one of the first scholars to seriously study figurines with the kind of attention that's usually reserved for the more big ticket excavation items like buildings or swords. Her work centered around what a documentary about Marija called Signs Out of Time calls a, quote, folk idea of what is important, meaning the little figures as much as the big temples, weapons, tools, coins, and the general economic analysis that I understand tended to dominate archaeological interpretation in her day. I am not positive if that's still true, but I'm sure by and large it is, because it is in all disciplines. And lastly, we have a display of just a few of her maps. And many of these in the collection are marked, as you see here, with dots or ink or whiteout, and they're also just very visually stunning pieces. So that concludes the abridged virtual exhibit. Now I'm going to go back to this slideshow to finish. And I will, I hope that that virtual exhibit was a bit of an appetizer to get you interested to check out the full version whenever you are able. Now I want to turn to just giving you a glimpse of what the exhibit process looks like. This is not because it's a deep or unpredictable science, but because it will show you, one, images of the actual archives that you would usually see for any in-person event. And two, making an exhibit is not very different from doing research at Opus in general, at least in its early stages. And this is something you can all do. So I've often thought of the work that I do, whether it's creating an exhibit or an event, making a dinner, a lecture, a dissertation, whatever, as curating. Even before I was a curator, I was fond of this approach and this idea. And this is a way that you can consider your own research as well. So first, of course, find the element of importance of what's being called for. In this case of exhibits, of course, an exhibit on Marija was called for by her Centennial. We have lots of ways of deciding what is the appropriate theme for our next exhibits. Then find your own themes, find questions that arise with it, and find your keywords. And that is important because I'm also going to make a little detour to show you how to research at Opus. And this is how I would do it if I was making an exhibit again. So you go to the research tab, databases, archives and manuscripts. And then there are two ways to search. You can search by keyword, which I trust is self-explanatory, or there's this top-down view. And that's, you select this icon, and now you can see all of our collections pop up to the left. This is always accessible. And I will click on Marija, and bio and info immediately pops up to the right. And then if you click any plus signs that are available to click on the left, that will take you to, continuing subcategories. So we have that again for artifacts. I'll click there. And this is the item list of artifacts, including further subcategories. So what I think is interesting to show with this is that we can already see from a few clicks that Marija's collection includes pottery, figurines, jewelry, personal memorabilia, a shell fossil, if you're interested in that, a bas relief from Pennsylvania. So you might find things you didn't know to look for. This is a great way to refine your subject area or discover a new one. I often find many pieces in the exhibits by knowing what I'm looking for, and also not by discovering it in the process. And if you do want to conduct research at Opus, we do ask researchers to go through this process a bit before they come. So now back to the slideshow. All right, once you know what you'd like to look at, a location will be indicated on that database as well. And then we go into the archives. So I usually make a long list of potential items by theme, and then I go seeking. So this is what the archives look like. Essentially a few rows of shelves protected by plastic in a temperature controlled environment. Here you can see what the archival boxes look like behind these people. Once we have our boxes, we go next door to the Legacy Digital Lab. This is where we do scanning and where I take up all available table space to curate. And I grabbed just a few images to show you of the process and to kind of give you some bonus feature images for this webinar from Marija's collection. So these, I sort things into folders by theme. Here are some conference brochures that did not actually make it into the exhibit for space reasons. Here's some pottery shards. More of these wonderful crosses in photo form and illustration form. More of these fabulous illustrations. These are proofs for Marija's books. So the Post-its with percentages indicate, I believe, the rate at which these would be reproduced in her books. The same figurine we saw before, as well as this bear-shaped offering vessel, which is in the exhibit. So once selections are made in the lab, potential selections, final selections are made in the installation process. Aesthetically, what best fits, what best evokes the essential ideas that we need to communicate. And then I also make the signage and labels. Marija's collection does not include paintings, but often our exhibits do. We have one sort of core artist in our archives named Katie Sanford. These are her paintings getting ready for hanging. This is an example of another exhibit in the same display case we first saw, just to show you how same but different it can be. This is a memorial exhibit for Marion Woodman. I really loved making this one. And here is a selection of books from our rare spiritualism book collection that was in one of our exhibits, also a big favorite. And then usually we'd have gallery hours as well in conjunction with Pacifica events or roundtable events. So you can see the upstairs library display here. So yes, we are not back on campus yet, sadly, hopefully in the winter. But once we are able to return to campus, please make an appointment. That's the best way to visit us. We do also have business hours. If you become a Pacifica student, Opus is a great place to swing by on your extended lunch break, look at exhibits, sit at Campbell's desk, check out the library. Until then, we have a few things you can enjoy online. So of course, the Gimbutas exhibit. Also, we currently have this exhibit available virtually. And this is a mini exhibit honoring Christine Downing, who is retiring from teaching this year after teaching at Pacifica for over 30 years, teaching in general for nearly 60. She co-founded the Myth program, just another incredible figure and a treasured part of our collections. So check that out. Additionally, you can view video of many of our previous roundtable events online through Opus's YouTube channel. The Joseph Campbell Foundation Mythological Roundtable group of Opus hosts regular, usually, gatherings that foster a deep and abiding interest in all things mythological. They're free and open to the public. So as we wait to have more on-campus events, you can enjoy some of the recorded events. This is a flyer for Myth program Professor Extraordinaire Patrick Mahaffey's event. And this is a picture of artist David Orr's roundtable, which was held in the Pacifica's Barrett Center. And I will put the YouTube link in our chat. So here is our contact info for myself, Andrea, and in general, and links to our donate page, always much appreciated. Joining our mailing list is the best way to find out about what's going on. And please follow us on social media. Oh, there's our channel as well. So that about wraps it up for me. Thank you for having me. Thank you for being here. And I think I managed to make it in enough time for Q&A.
Thank you so much, Devon. Yeah, if you would, if you have questions, I'd love to be able to see those and then allow for Andrea and Devon to answer them if they are OPUS related. So let's see.
I'm going to put these links in the chat.
Okay.
Should I stop screen sharing or leave it?
You could leave it on.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think we have one question here. Yeah, so are all OPUS archive and research center pages open to the public to search?
Andrea.
Yeah, that'll be me. Yes, so all of the OPUS website and our catalog is available for anybody. And our catalog is just that, a catalog of what we have. It does not have the actual like documents or items shown in it. Because they are only available in person. So
Right.
You can access the catalog, anybody can, our website. And if you have any specific questions or want to know more about something, you can always contact us. Email us is best right now. But usually you can call us if you feel more comfortable calling. And we're happy to answer questions that way.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we have a question here. Will you ever put up a spiritualism exhibit?
I would love to. One of the exhibits that we did called Guiding Spirits, the Witches and Women of Opus, was the closest we've gotten to that. And that was planned in conjunction with, I think it was a symposium that Pacifica organized on the subject of witches and radical women. And so that, I cut it out of what I was going to present for time, but I'm glad it's coming back. That is a way that we often go about choosing our theme is what is Pacifica up to? What are the major conferences that year? And then see if we can make an exhibit to resonate and be a part of the conference program in that way with gallery hours. So that, I wish so much we had a virtual exhibit of that exhibit, maybe in particular. It was really fun. There was a lot of imagery from Marija on witches, Baba Yaga, Hecate, and then as many spiritualism books as I could put out there. So gosh, yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll have to recreate it and make it virtual. Andrea, how do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that it's a subject we would solely focus on, because it
right.
The majority of our material on spiritualism is that rare book collection, which I mean is just phenomenal to look at. It's an amazing book collection, most of which is early 1900s, late 1800s, and it's a great collection. But some of it will probably be on display in the future for sure, because it is,
yeah,
we do so love it. And it does fit in with other themes. So there will be pieces definitely on display in the future.
Yeah, it's really one of the most fun collections. We can't leave them open in the sun or any light, really. So we often show covers, which are really visually stunning, and then make copies to show some of the text. But yeah, whoever's asking that should come and see them in person.
Yeah. And the thing with now that we're working on being able to present a lot of our exhibits virtually, is that will give us a little more opportunity to present some of those things more in depth, instead of just the book sitting on the shelf. Will be able to show you more views from inside the books and pages virtually than we can in person. So that will be something, that the kind of bright side of doing some of this virtual.
Yeah, we've got a lot of comments about that. It's, one of them says, if you add an ancestor worship possession, myths and legends, you'd have plenty, and that'd be something that they'd look forward to, any of that. So yeah.
Yeah, we've got all of that.
Yeah.
So here's a question. So Devon, when did you know you wanted to study at Pacifica?
Well, the real sort of tipping point was being introduced to James Hillman's work and reading that. And I really found in him this incredible balancing act of like deep soul, but also this contemporary kind of wit and humor. And it resonated. But I was living a bit vicariously through a friend of mine who went to the counseling program. And so I saw all of her books and visited the campus with her probably in 2010 or 2009. And it just felt right. So yeah, I'm so glad I did it.
Yeah, let's see here. Okay, so what makes you choose a collection?
For an exhibit? Well, in this case, every now and then it's centered on a collection. That's rare. I think most of the exhibits have been more of a theme, and then I really do try to represent as many people as possible. So if the theme was on alchemy, which the first exhibit was, then I really looked into every collection to see if they had something on that point, and most did, not all do. So that kind of determines it. But the more representation, the better, for sure.
Yeah. Like a follow-up question was, do archives have to be a part of the collection of a famous teacher or author? Do you also collect other books and research materials?
So all collections that come in, it doesn't have to necessarily be somebody, that's very famous or, very high profile. But collections that, collections that come in could be, from somebody that maybe nobody's ever heard of. They were a scholar of, depth psychology or mythology, and they happen to have a collection that they collected of, let's say they were really, we'll just use like goddesses. They were really into goddesses of ancient cultures, and they collected, maybe some artwork and sculptures. Maybe they have books about it, rare materials. That would then be something that we would consider adding to the collections at OPUS. Every collection that we have goes through a process of, an acceptance process. And we make sure first and foremost that the collection, whatever it contains, really fits our mission to collect, preserve, and share these resources within depth psychology and mythology. So it really does need to fit our mission, fit the themes that we hold, and then we go from there. So it doesn't have to be somebody like Marija Gimbutas, who is well known and has these, is this amazing scholar in multiple fields. It can be somebody who just really loved the topic and has collected.
Question, does Opus offer online classes?
We do not. We don't offer any classes. We're really here. Most of us are not teachers. We're not instructors. We are archivists. So we like to share the material, but we don't really offer courses and those kind of things. But we are always happy if there's a topic that you want to research. We are very hands-on and happy to explore those, whatever your topic may be.
Sure.
Yeah, and I'd say the roundtables are the closest that we get, and there's these roundtables chartered by the Campbell Foundation all over the world. This is a special place to have one, this being Pacifica, where I'm not currently, but we all are. And so if you check out the YouTube channel, you can see like often it'll be a Pacifica professor or another person from the fields of myth. And it's like getting a taste of what you might have at Pacifica. So it's class-like, but those are not proper classes.
Sure. Okay, so can people who can't come in person arrange for some research, virtually, or only Pacifica people can have access?
Okay, so you don't have to be related to Pacifica to come in. We have people that are like just interested in, let's say, Joseph Campbell, the Joseph Campbell Library, want to stop in and see. Absolutely. Some of our neighbors, in surrounding area will go, oh, I didn't know there was this archive here. I just wanted to check it out. You're welcome. And as far as research, if you cannot come in to do the research, there's not a lot we can send you. There's a lot of copyright issues with sending materials. There's a lot of, sharing restrictions and things like that. So if you couldn't come in, you could arrange for somebody else to come in, but that would be on your, that would be your decision to decide.
Okay. Well, we've gotten a lot of thank yous and a lot of appreciation from our viewers. And I'm going to ask one last question here. Devon, so how closely did you work with Opus as a student while you worked on your dissertation? And did you use that to collect research?
I really did. I will say that I knew of Opus when I was in coursework, but I had never been. And that's certainly something we are trying to change for future students, so they come visit us and know about us in advance, because it's a tremendous resource. So then once I started volunteering and working at Opus, I made my own research days. Sometimes I also, as I was curating, got quite a lot of information that was really valuable to my dissertation. So I found things in Hillman's archives that really ended up in my dissertation, and pointed me to other resources. So I thanked Opus at the beginning of my dissertation. It was really an important resource.
And I do want to say for students, not just from Pacifica, but for any doctoral student, Opus does offer the Christine Downing Dissertation Fellowship. So when you're writing your dissertation, we have an award once a year to one student studying in the fields of depth psychology and or mythology. And we offer a $5,000 fellowship for that student to be able to come in and utilize Opus resources do research here, spend time with us while they're writing their dissertation. So that is an option once you're in your dissertation phase, both here at Pacifica as well as out in the world, as long as it's depth psychology and mythology based.
Great. Well, kudos. Someone does say kudos on an excellent presentation, and thank you for a really useful session, and look forward to exploring more on your website. And I couldn't agree more. Andrea, Devon, thank you so much for your time. Thanks to those that have viewed today's webinar, and we hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your day.